A catapult is a ballistic device used to throw an object over a distance. A catapult can be as small as a rubber band slingshot used to skim rocks across a pond, or as large as a 90-meter, which is 300 feet long, steam units used to launch airplanes from an aircraft carrier. In Britain, aircraft carrier catapults are referred to as accelerators, which is perhaps a more accurate term for because they actually resemble what these machines do. The catapult was invented around 400 BC in a Greek town of Syracuse. The very first catapult which was invented, resembled a crossbow. The Greeks, impressed by the destructive power of this new weapon, created a bigger version of this and called it ballista, and it was used as a defense weapon against the raiding armies. Subsequently came the trebuchet. A trebuchet is the largest and one of the most destructive weapons to come out of the Middle Ages. These massive war machines were commonly used to break down enemy fortifications like castles by launching heavy loads like stones, boulders, weighing approximately 480 kgs. Projectiles also included fire material intended to cause fire, and at times sewage was thrown in an attempt to spreadables have been able to achieve a thrilling distance of 400 meters to about a mile, depending upon the weight of the object. Although they haven't been used for more than 500 years now, they still remain quite popular throughout the modern history, and they are often constructed today for educational purposes and recreation. This machine has an impressive power to even take down castles despite its simple design.
Catapults have been integral to siege warfare since antiquity. Though ancient catapults were one of the most effective weapons in siege warfare, various types of catapults have been used by Greeks, Romans, and Chinese. The ancient Greeks and Romans used a heavy crossbow-like weapon known as a ballista to shoot arrows and darts as well as stones at enemy soldiers. The term catapult refers to these weapons. The first catapults were early attempts to increase the range and power of a crossbow. A Greek historian was the first to document firing catapult in 399 BC. Catapults, as we think of them, were introduced to Europe during the Middle Ages. Catapults made their exhibition in England in 1260 during the siege of Dover. The French crossed the Channel and were the first to use catapults on English soil. With war prevalent throughout Europe during the Middle Ages, the popularity of fortified castle and city wall rose significantly. This made catapults an essential. Catapults were used to launch missiles. These missiles were either launched directly at the wall to cause maximum damage to the fortifications, or were launched over the wall to lay siege on the population within the protective walls. The catapults were also used to throw missiles at soldiers. The first accounted acts of biological warfare involved catapults. Catapults were used extensively throughout Europe until 885 to 886 AD, when new defense systems rendered catapults ineffective.
Types of catapult. Catapults are also known as siege engines, which were used to take down castles and fortresses, and also used to defend castles and fortresses from the raiding armies. The first catapult over here is a Mangonel, also called as the Onager, was developed by Romans. It had one throwing arm, which end was connected to a base by a twisted cinema ropes. Similar to Greeks' ballista, it was light and easy to move and could throw rocks as well as fire. It was inaccurate, however. Both ballista and Mangonel use the are called torsion machines because they are powered by twisting force called torsion. A trebuchet. A counterpoised trebuchet worked the same way, but a counterweight was used on the short end of the beam. To fire it, they pulled the long end of the beam down and then released it. Both types of There are both types of trebuchet: a traction trebuchet and a counterpoised trebuchet. A ballista. Ballista is the oldest form of catapult used in siege warfare. The ballista is best described as a giant crossbow which fired spears instead of arrows. Were many types of ballista popular amongst Greeks and Romans, but the one thing they have in common is that they were all powered by twisted cinematic ropes. The ballista was accurate and could fire spears a great distance, but were difficult to build and they were limited, hitting only what they could see.
Catapult physics is basically the use of stored energy to hold a projectile without the use of any explosive. There are three primary types of energy storage mechanisms: tension, torsion, and gravity. The main types of catapults used for Trebuchet, Mangonel, Onega, and Ballista. Today, we are going to see mechanisms and physics of one of the main catapults called Mangonel, as explained by Shaurya. The physics behind a Mangonel is basically the use of any energy storage mechanism to rotate the arm, unlike the trebuchet, whose mechanism is more direct. Consists of iron torsion device directly connected to the arm. The left figure illustrates a mangonel in which the energy source is a bent cantilever. The figure on the right shows the mangonel at a launch path. The figure on the left shows the torsion device. The figure on the right shows the torsion bundle where it is twisted. Next slide. The science behind catapults is found by using the equation of the projectile motion. The main aim is to keep that for any projectile motion, when the projectile is released, the force weight. When a projectile is released, it has two components: the motion horizontal and vertical, which can be found out since gravity does not affect horizontal motion. This results gives us the equation of the distance or the range of a projectile that it will travel if released with an initial velocity v0 at a specific angle theta with respect to the ground, such that r is equal to v0 square sine 2 theta upon gravity.